Hey everyone, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm excited to have Gabe, Henderson, and Tatum Everett. I mean, if you know anything about the Vikings, you know about them. If you don't, you've been under a rock and not paying attention to this 13-4 Minnesota Vikings team this season. But I'm excited to have them join us today. We're going to have a super show to kind of end the season. We got Sam Ekstrom, myself, Tatum Everett, Gabe Henderson, and we have to talk about something that caught, I think, everybody's eye. And that was the Super Bowl performance. We're going to talk a little bit of Super Bowl performance. We're also going to talk about contracts because money rules everything around me. Cream, dollar bill, y'all. Coming up next.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcasts. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now the Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Ron Johnson Show, and I'm your host, Ron Johnson. I just want you to know this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/Locked On today to get started. And we know it only matters when there's money on the line, because watching the Super Bowl is fun. But when you have that parlay out there, when Travis Kelce scored, when Jalen Hurts scored, I know everybody was getting more excited just like I was. But I want you guys to remember that. But we're gonna bring Gabe Henderson and Tatum Everett into the show with Sam Ekstrom. And I just want you guys to know we are going to hit on a lot of fun topics. We're going to talk about some serious topics. And then we're going to get some Super Bowl takes as well. History was made. It was a fun game. But the season's over now. The lights are dim. What's next for the Minnesota Vikings? I also want you guys to know Amazon Fire and Roku. Just go to your TV, the Amazon Fire app or the Roku, whichever TV you have. Just go to your apps, search Locked On Sports Minnesota, download. You'll get all the videos, all the shows right there in your TV. Well, hey, everybody. There's Tatum Everett, Gabe Henderson, and Sam Ekstrom. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. It's going to be a fun power pack show all show long with the four of us. I'm going to jump out there right away. Tatum, Super Bowl. What were your thoughts?
I thought it was a great game. Had a ton of fun watching it. Went to a Super Bowl party, which I thought was really neat. Got to watch everyone else gamble and get really high and low with all of the plays. I think the Super Bowl squares was a very, very hot discussion at this party, because I think it's pretty funny when you can, like you said earlier, when you get to gamble a little money on it. But no, I thought it was a really great game. I think, we always joke around the NFL always wins, and I definitely think the NFL won with that game down to the wire. Happy for Patrick Mahomes. I was actually kind of going for the Eagles. I really like a lot of the guys on there. They helped carry my fantasy team to success, so I was kind of rooting for those guys. But I do, I thought it was great. Sucks Minnesota wasn't in it, but you got to dream.
Yeah, true. It sucks Minnesota wasn't in it. It sucks that the Eagles look like they're going to be good for the next couple of years. So got to figure out a way to knock the Giants down. Gabe, your Super Bowl thoughts?
Yeah, it was a really good game. Like Tatum said, I pretty much chilled out. Like I had got invited to a couple of parties, but I was like, you know what? Like, I think I'm gonna just chill at the crib today. Like, not be bothered. Got a big day on Monday, so just from the game per se, I thought the Eagles were going to win. I thought they were literally like one play away from blowing the entire game out. And then Jalen Hurts fumble, and then the game pretty much changes from there. Andy Reid, I guess we can say he's arguably the best coach, or I guess second best coach in NFL history based off of that second half performance. But it was entertaining from start to finish. I went to the dentist's office yesterday, and my dentist was like, hey, did you watch the game yesterday? And I was like, yeah, of course. And so she was like, yeah, this is the only game I watch per year, and I think next year I may watch 2 games just because of how good last night's game was. So the power of the Super Bowl in the NFL, like we all get it, but I think Sunday's game kind of put it all into perspective.
And Sam, for you, I know we already talked about the game. We're going to talk about it a little bit more, but something just came up, and I want you guys to give me your thoughts on this. Rihanna, I think it was 118 million people tuned in to watch Rihanna. but only 113 million people watched the game. Like, what in the world? Like, so there's literally 5 million people out there that just turned it on. Okay, I know Rihanna's performing. All right, good. I'm gonna go back to doing whatever I was doing. Sam, what are your thoughts on that? Like, because I've seen some tweets about boring halftime shows, and nothing against certain cultures, certain music, but there's just certain performers that, you know, it's just music you want to hear in a bar when you're drinking with your friends, but you don't pretty much want to bop to it. And Rihanna's one of those people that you want to bop to. Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, they said that one was huge. And of course it was nostalgic. I think like a Nelly, Ludacris would do the same because it's going to be nostalgic. Lil Uzi Vert, you need to stay to the side. Nobody wants to hear, you know, mumble rap for 13 minutes. And so, Sam, when you look at that, though, the power of Riri, do you think the NFL is going to take notice of that?
Yeah, I think the NFL for a while, they've kind of gone with these medleys almost where they bring in like a lot of different people and they all kind of have their couple minutes. But I thought it was powerful that it was just one person. It was Rihanna, all red. And she dominated it. She owned it. She was up on a platform 100 feet above the field. I thought she was just super iconic in that moment. And I will say, small sample size of the 4-person viewing party in my home, never were the 4 people more engaged at once listening to the TV than in that moment. And even my 2 kids were captivated. They probably maybe a little too young to be watching that, to be honest. I might regret that later on, but they were pretty fired up as well. So it was, I thought she really captured the audience. I totally get why the casuals would be drawn to that. Such a big name who kind of spans a couple different generations now that she's been in the game for a couple decades.
I will say I've never been more conscious of how much Rihanna like grabs her crotch and how sexual her songs are till you're watching it with your 11-year-old daughter. And I'm just like, and all my daughter kept saying, like, I could hear over there saying to her mom, like, why is dad making that face? And that face was just kind of like a grimace, like, oh, did she really just like, come on, Rihanna? Like, but yeah, I mean, I get it. Cause when you're watching it, you're like, oh, cool, whatever. But then when you have your daughter there, you're like, oh, did she just say that? Like, Riri. But, you know, so I get what you're saying, Sam. Yeah, it's one of those, I think, you know what? And this is one thing, you know, about kids and women. At the end of the day, Rihanna's a woman. I have daughters. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, it's the anatomy. So I think they figured it out. They're like, yep, that's just what Riri does. She's a performer and singer. So I'm going to move on from that. I just like, I defer to my wife.
Though. Cut in though. It is kind of funny how many times men do it and we don't talk about it or make it a comment.
Grab their crotch or the music? Grab their crotch or the music? The crotch.
Marshawn Lynch.
Never thought I was going to say that word today, but yes.
True, Marshawn. See, but when I feel like when
happens all the time.
So Justin Timberlake, we do know. Like, I would love to see him and Janet Jackson come back. Somebody bought that one up. Like, they should let Janet get a reprieve and her and Justin start over again. I'd love to see that. I like for me, and maybe because I'm a man, and I just think men grabbing their crotch is like more funny than anything, and it's more like readjustment. Like I just. Like, unless you're Drake, I guess Drake and Chris Brown kind of do it to be sexual. But, you know, for some men, it's just like 50, you know, like they're just doing it because that's, I don't know, like that's what we did. So I never, but I'm not a woman. So I guess I wouldn't notice that. But for a man, and again, that's why I kind of deferred to my wife. My wife didn't really move an inch or say anything. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to, like, she's got this with the girls. Like, she has the conversations and she does the stuff. So I'm like, hey, it's you do your thing. I'm going to just sit here and watch Riri. But she did bring up the whole fact of pregnant because she was like, I didn't want to say anything about her being pregnant because I don't want the girls to look at women who might not be like in perfect shape and always just assume they're pregnant, you know, whether it's postpartum, whatever it might be. Yeah. So we didn't bring that up until after, but then Cam kind of like, and I was like, well, she had a baby. And she's like, oh, she married? I'm like, well, she's engaged, you know, because my daughter, like, she's trying to figure that out. Like, you know, well, can you have babies if you're not married? You know, what is that like? And what's going on there? And, you know, so it was an interesting kind of a night, but definitely enjoyed it. Here's a quick one for you guys. When you look at this Super Bowl and you look at 2 iconic quarterbacks, you look at Jalen Hurts. Yeah, Jalen Hurts. So I don't know why I couldn't think of his name. Jalen Hurts. I was thinking Jalen Suggs, but Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. You look at 2 iconic quarterbacks. and you look at how they like Patrick Mahomes today, I heard him on the radio and he said, at no point being 10 points down did we ever feel like we were out of this game because our game plan was just solid. Like Andy Reid had them mentally like we can score at any moment. I transition this to Kirk Cousins, Kevin O'Connell's offense, year 2. Do you think there will be a time? Because I felt like, as these games got better throughout the year, it felt like Kirk was that guy. Like, you know what? At any point, Kevin O'Connell's offense can get them back in these games. Do you think Kirk could ever stand up on the stage like the Super Bowl? Because we know primetime Kirk jokes and all that. Do you think that he could withstand all of that now having a mental guru like Kevin O'Connell to help him out in possibly Super Bowl 58? I'll go with you, Gabe.
I would hope so. I do think Kirk needs to add the running element to his game. Like Pat Mahomes on one ankle was extending plays. The game-changing play was his 2 runs on 3rd down that pretty much put the Chiefs in a scoring position. So I do think that's something that Kevin O'Connell probably needs to emphasize on Kirk a little bit more and basically say, hey, Kirk, remember that play? I think week 6 against the Arizona Cardinals where it was you kind of made a play out of no play and you turned it into a touchdown with your legs. Like we need a little bit of that a little bit more in 2023. So I think that's the only thing Kirk is missing. And that definitely is something, in my opinion, that I believe Kevin O'Connell was going to tell Kirk this year. If you rewind back to 2017, when Kevin O'Connell was Kirk's OC in Washington, that was Kirk's most rushing yards of his career. I think he had like 170, like somewhere around that range. And I mean, for people who's followed Kirk, 170 rushing yards is a lot. Like that's an 1,000-yard season for Kirk. So if he can, boost that to 200 or 250 in year number 2 with Kevin O'Connell, I can see that happening. The Minnesota Vikings at least contending for a Super Bowl because of Kirk and his legs.
Yeah, and Tatum, do you think Kirk Cousins can overcome primetime Kirk jokes to actually be in a Super Bowl and hold on to it like that?
Yeah, I think that's the hope, right? It's funny because watching that, I agree with Gabe 100% because there was one play where the blitz was just right in Patrick Mahomes' face and he was able to just go right around. It was like such a natural movement. There was no thought to it. It was just part of his game. And I turned to my fiance and I was like, yeah, Kirk wouldn't have gotten out of that jam. Like nothing against Kirk. It just wasn't, that's not something like he would have had the sack. It would have been on to the next play. And so for me, yes. But it's also, I think, I wish we could have seen what this particular offensive makeup, because obviously it's going to change moving forward, nature of the business, would have done if the defense this season was just a step up better. I know when you came on the podcast, Ron, you were I think on the show, you were like, if they could just get the defense to like 18th, 19th in the league, like what could that have done to this team? Because this offense can score. I don't know if it's so much like he needs to run a ton. I just think that this offense needs to be playing into what they do best and just have a better defensive outing. So it's not just on their shoulders. They don't have to always play catch up. And I think that's also like the personification of what these 2 quarterbacks and these 2 offenses hang their hat on, are these coaches who have figured out how to make those quarterbacks work so well in their systems, and not so much square peg round hole, but like, hey, these guys have these special talents. Let's build around that instead of maybe the opposite. So without the legs of Kirk, I do think that, maybe it's more building around that, but being more mobile obviously does pay off, as you can see.
You think about that with Kirk, Sam, and you think about the mental capacity of what Patrick Mahomes has. He talked about his dad being able to lean on that. Jalen Hurts talked about, leaning on his dad as well and the lessons and the overcome. Like I love the beginning of the Super Bowl where Jalen Hurts has said, I had to break barriers. I had to deal with breaking or dealing with walls in front of me. And it was a Tua Tagovailoa getting put in the game and Jalen Hurts having to come out the game. And it was a fake Nick Saban kind of pushing the Tagovailoa onto the field. And it's like, we forgot about that. Like we forgot that he could have folded. Like he could have gave up. So when you think about that mental kind of how Kirk now said he feels better. He feels like, like, I don't know. Like he said he felt better. Like he just felt like he understood the offense and everything. Do you think that's going to help Kirk long-term now, possibly winning the Super Bowl? Because we talked about the outlier quarterbacks. There's always that core. And I think it's going to be Mahomes, Hurts, Josh Allen, Burrow. Like those are going to be the core 4. They're going to be like the Brady, Roethlisberger, Peyton Mannings, where they're going to constantly always be in those championships. But can Kirk become like a Nick Foles or a Carson Wentz who kind of just gets that lightning in the bottle, or the Joe Flacco. Like, can Kirk do that, Sam?
So my realistic view of Kirk Cousins is that he is never going to win games for you with his legs like a Mahomes or a Hurts. I think he can bail you out of a play or two, as he did at times last year. But that's not going to be why you win. I think the Vikings actually left a lot of meat on the bone offensively last year. I think they can have fewer 3-and-outs. They can extend drives longer. I think the running game can be a lot better. And I think the pass protection can be a lot better. And above all, I think the play sequencing can be a lot better. Like, I think there's actually room for running game, coaching, blocking, all of that I think can improve around Kirk Cousins next year. Kirk Cousins is the one who has a greater track record. He kind of is who he is. He's getting older. He's in his mid-30s. And I think he had a very nice year last year. And I thought he played with a quieter mind. I thought that as the wins came down the pipeline, I thought Kirk really relaxed. I think that he's always had a very pragmatic view of why he gets criticized. He says, well, I get it. I'm a 500 quarterback. That's why people want to win. And last year he won and people loved him, even though his stats weren't spectacular. I think that if you improve this stuff around Kirk, so that's blocking, rushing, coaching, defense, I think all of that can enhance what Kirk Cousins is.
That sounds like the Spice. I don't know if you guys saw Janelle Monáe, the singer, and then Spice Adams just did like a little Instagram video together, because Janelle Monáe is playing in the NBA All-Star game. Yeah, she's playing in the NBA All-Star game. The singer, and she's trying to learn basketball, so she said she had to reach out to Kareem Biggums, which is Spice Adams. Your take right there sounded like Spice when he told Janelle Monáe what she needs to work on. He was like, rebounding, passing, shooting, dribbling, transition defense, just defense in general, transition offense, the 3-pointer, the pass, the pick, the roll. Like, I'm like, dude, like, Sam's like, Kirk Cousins has everything. The offense needs to work on everything. The defense needs to work on everything. Kirk Cousins will get it going. But I do agree, because we're going to talk about this next coming up. The Vikings, what Sam just said, the Vikings are going to do. Why? They hired a guy by the name of Brian Flores. Flo, as the world calls him. He is now the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator. We're seeing Shane Steichen go be a head coach for the Colts. Brian Flores turned a lot of those opportunities down for a chance to come in with Kevin O'Connell, hone his skills as the true defensive coordinator, because he was just a defensive assistant with the Steelers. So I think he wanted to kind of get his appetite again, maybe 2 years with the Vikings before he becomes a head coach, because it's just not like they're going to make him a head coach. A job has to come open. Could be 2, could be 3 years, but I think he has the opportunity to be a really good defensive coordinator, and all those things about fixing the Vikings defense that Sam brought up, we're going to talk about that next coming up on the Ron Johnson Show. Usually it's the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment, but we're already here. So we're just going to hang out in the next segment. But I want you guys to remember, Locked On Sports Minnesota is a proud partner with Care 11. Just check out care11.com/locked on for all of our links to all of our Locked On shows. And we have a word from our sponsors.
It's FanDuel, and it's the NBA season coming down the stretch. Great time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. No sweat first bet. For new customers, get up to $1,000 in bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Download the cool, easy-to-use FanDuel Sportsbook app and bet on everything: money line, point scorers, 3 points made. Hey, the T-Wolves, not only did they cover the spread last night, they hit the money line plus 240-ish at Dallas. That's a big win for those Wolves bettors. FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout as well with the same game parlay. So sign up for your no sweat first bet today. Get up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more.
Well, now it's time for the Hanging with Ron Johnson segment. And of course, we got Gabe Henderson, Tatum Everett, Sam Ekstrom. We're all just going to hang out some more. And we got to talk about what I just said in the previous segment. Brian Flores. He's now the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator. In my opinion, this guy can run a 3-4. He can run a hybrid 3-4 where it has an over front, which just means you're going to cover up the center and you're going to try to make sure all the gaps are taken care of with whether linebackers are up in space or they're up at the line of scrimmage. We saw the Steelers do it a ton with TJ Watt. Brian Flores did come from the Steelers. So I look forward to seeing some type of Steelers type of defensive look, more nickel in the game, because you can blitz that DB and get more speed off the edge as well. And then we know the Steelers love to do that. If you go way back to the Mike Tomlin with Ike Taylor and all those guys and Bryant McFadden. I mean, they've always been aggressive with their DBs as well, playing a lot of man coverage, a lot of aggressive man coverage, and the safeties just roaming the field, which you have a guy by the name of Hawkeye, I like to call him, but Harrison Smith, the silent assassin. But I'm going to go with you, Tatum. When you look at Brian Flores' impact, because the minute he was hired, tweets went all across the world. Like everybody tweeted out about Brian Flores and, Flo, man, that's a great pickup, man. The Vikings, you guys got you one, man. I'm so happy he's the defensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings now, blah, blah. Only people that didn't tweet were the Miami Dolphins, but we know why. But other than that, everybody else tweeted like so excited for the Minnesota Vikings. So when Kevin O'Connell came, there was excitement, 13-4. Now Brian Flores has come, even more excitement. What does that mean for the Minnesota Vikings organization, Tatum?
I think it just extends what Kevin O'Connell has set the tone with in his first season. He came in preaching culture and preaching fit. They're very much players coach. They love the guys up. They tell them why. They ask those questions. And so I think the players really relate to them on that level. And you see the success in the locker room. I mean, if you've even watched one of Kevin O'Connell's speeches after the game. I mean, it helps that there are 13 ones where they won. But if you watch those post locker room speeches, you see the respect for him from these players, how much these guys loved each other. They talked about chemistry all season long, how much they, respect one another and have each other's backs. And I think that all starts with your coaching staff. I think that Brian Flores just adds to that. I don't think this coaching staff would bring in someone who didn't make that fit. And I think that when it's reflected, like you said, in all of the tweets and all of the excitement from everyone else, all the outsiders outside of the organization with this hire. I think it's a home run so far. Obviously, you got to wait and see what he's able to do when he's out there. But he gets in the building this week, and I'm sure it'll be right to work.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not just about like the adoration or admiration, it's respect, because you look at Shane Steichen, nothing, and maybe people just hate the Eagles. I don't see a ton of people like congratulating the coach today. Like, it's not like, oh, coach, you guys got the great one. Like, good. I think if Brian Flores had been named the head coach and he wanted to continue with those interviews because he turned them down and just said, nope, I'm done. I'm going to take this job with the Minnesota Vikings. I think the same tweets would have went out like, oh man, the coach got Brian Flores, man. Like, now that defense is really going, like, you don't see that from Shane Steichen. And of course, maybe he's offensive coordinator, maybe a name that's not as big as Brian Flores. But Gabe, when you think about that, the respect that people have for Brian Flores, does that put the league on notice, and for sure the NFC North on notice, that not only is the Minnesota Vikings offense scary, now their defense is possibly going to be scary?
Oh, absolutely. And I think just what Brian Flores brings this team is a toughness that a lot of people were saying the Minnesota Vikings didn't have last year. Brian Flores, a no-nonsense type of guy, grew up in a military family. Dad was a military guy, just a very strict, stern, to the point, doesn't play many games, but loves on you as a coach. I think that's what this Minnesota Vikings defense needed a little bit at certain points last year. I think I said this on our Vikings podcast last week. My college roommate played for Brian Flores, played cornerback for Brian Flores in 2019 and 2020. So the first thing I said when I texted him, I was just like, yo, like, tell me about Flo. And the first thing he said is like, he's a real dude. He's going to love on you, and he gets the best out of what he has. So whether that's the best players on the field or, middle of the par players, at given positions for this Minnesota Vikings defense, we will see Brian Flores getting the best out of those guys. And all of those guys will be running head first to the ball. And that's all we really wanted last year, was just, hey, can we blitz a little bit more? Hey, can we hear pads a little bit more when a running back is getting tackled? And that's what Brian Flores preaches. So I'm excited. He's a player's coach. I think his personality and Kevin O'Connell's personality match well. So if you're other teams in the NFC North, yeah, you definitely have to respect the Vikings just because of that.
Yeah, Sam, if you had to fix something with this Vikings defense, what does Brian Flores need to come in right away and fix?
The pass defense. And that was his specialty for the most part in New England when he was a secondaries coach. That was one of his strengths in Miami as well, was the pass defense. So I think that there's proof in the marriage between pass rush and coverage. If you are blitzing, if you are getting rushers to the quarterback quickly, that's going to help your coverage and vice versa. Next year is a big year for the Vikings secondary because they've got Lewis Cine back from injury, Andrew Booth back from injury, Caleb Evans back from concussions. Those are three members who I think the team hopes can start for this group down the road. I think Brian Flores is a good person to usher in the new generation of the Vikings secondary. They might not have Patrick Peterson. They might not have Harrison Smith with that big contract. So there are going to be a lot of young, new pieces. But I will say this. It's going to be fun to watch him blitz the safeties, whoever it might be. If it's Harrison Smith, we're going to have to start calling him Harrison Blitz, because Brian Flores in 2021 brought 196 safety blitzes in Miami. Ed Donatel last year for the Vikings, 19, 10 times fewer than you saw from Brian Flores the year before in Miami. So that's just going to be fun to watch as a football observer to see where this guy brings pressure from.
Yeah, and Brian Flores was with the Patriots from 2008 to 2018. He's with the Dolphins from 2019 to 2021. And Sam's right. When you look at the total offense, when he inherited this Miami team's defense, they were 30th, giving up almost 400 yards a game. By the time in 2021, when he really put his thumb on it, of course, there was other crap going on, they were 15th. So, and that's what we've talked about. If the Vikings can go from 30th to 15th, they're in the NFC Championship game. Like, just go from 30th to 15th. You don't have to be the best. Just go from 30th to 15th. He's done that. You look at pass yards allowed, like Sam was talking about. 262 yards allowed before when he kind of really got in there, cut it down to 16th. He went from 26th to 16th. That's 10 basis points of jumping. He got it down to almost 200 pass yards a game. 200. And when you look at a Vikings team that was giving up 400 in multiple games, 200 yards a game, and that's probably from blitz and safety. That's probably from getting after the quarterback and making him get the ball out of his hands quick and then rallying to the ball. You know, like Gabe said, pads. I want to hear thumps. I want to hear loud notes. I mean, you know, you look at the Brian Dawkins interview with Ryan Clark. Brian Dawkins said, I cared so much about my teammates in my game that I wanted to throw my body across anything. And just the way, like, you know, these guys have to do that. It almost felt like Ed Donatel, the guys embodied him. It was kind of more laid back. It was kind of, let's play coverage. Let's just try to keep guys in front of us. And if you're not getting a pass rush every single time, it doesn't work. When za'darius and Daniil were getting after the quarterback, no problem. But when they're not getting after the quarterback, and you look at Bradbury, and we know what Deebo Samuel said about the Eagles, that Bradbury was trash. I wouldn't go that far. That we know that's Deebo just trying to be sensational. But he said that front seven and that front four specifically make these DBs good. And that's true. Darius Slay is good regardless, but he's making these guys good. When you look at CJ Gardner-Johnson, you look at all these, like, that pass rush makes DBs only have to cover for 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds. Like, anybody can do that. Not anybody, but the great anybody quarterbacks out there can do that. And so I think that's the key. Like, you look at when the Chiefs really started Trent McDuffie and those guys start making plays, because Chris Jones and you know, he kind of got off the leash and said, you know what, screw this. I'm going to put this in my hand, which, by the way, so let's talk about a funny one real quick, because we're going to jump into the Daily 3 in a minute. Got a couple more if we get to the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. I don't know if you guys saw this video, but Roger Goodell is hugging Chris Jones after the game. Yeah. And somebody's mic was still on, and he said, I don't care how you hit the quarterback. And Chris Jones just kind of laughed about it, blah, blah. So clearly, is Roger Goodell, like, because we know this rule was created. So I don't know if it was created for Brady or it's created because, you know, Aaron Rodgers and his clavicle, so you can't land on the quarterback. We know that was part of this. Was this more of the owners pushing Goodell to do this, or was this more of the NFLPA saying, hey, we need to keep our quarterback safe? Because clearly Roger Goodell's like, look, I just want to see good football. I don't really care how you guys land on the quarterback. And I know he's probably looking back like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. And I didn't realize, you know, their microphone could pick it up. Like, bro, you're the commissioner at the Super Bowl. You don't think everybody has a mic on you? But Gabe, when you hear the commissioner say that stuff, like, I don't really care, which clearly means he probably doesn't care about some of these other type of hits. What do you think that's doing for the NFLPA right now? And they're like, wait, so these owners really don't care. We got to make sure we take care of our players. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the NFLPA and the owners, they probably sent them a text message and it's like, hey, Roger, give me a call whenever you get a free chance. And he probably gave him a call.
New number, who
like,
dis?
Right. Right. And I'm sure Roger probably picked up, and the discussion was, you know, we understand that you don't make any decisions. However, we need you to uphold our brand. Like, Roger Goodell doesn't really care about all this. Like he's just a face, right? It's kind of like
true.
a president or a guy, or anybody in a high position like that. You're literally just a face, and you're just kind of making sure everything goes well. And you can't say that. Like I get it. Like I get it, but like at the same time, I'm sure he got a couple of phone calls. I'm sure he won't get fined like a player would if a player
fight himself.
Right, exactly. It's like, I'm gonna just take this money out of my Cancun trip this year. But I do think he didn't mean to say that in that breath, but at the same time, like I feel like he kind of proved that Roger Goodell is like the rest of us. Like we just want to see good football. We just want to have fun. Like it's not that big of a deal, but like I get it from a safety perspective, and I didn't overthink that, but at the same time, like I'm sure he got a couple of text messages.
Tatum, what are your thoughts on that one?
I just love that he's a real dude, right? Like you said, Gabe, I mean, he's one of us. It's nice to know he's not just kind of like the guy that issues the press statements and kind of just says that. And I think it also shows that, I think you lose sight of the fact that maybe Roger Goodell does love football, loves to watch it, is around it. Because, I mean, it literally is his job and probably encompasses every aspect of his life. He's traveling all the time. He's obviously making a lot of money off it, so I don't feel bad for the guy. But like you can tell that he just loves football, and I appreciate that. I agree. I'm sure the owners weren't really too keen on hearing that, especially owners of specific franchises. We all know have quarterbacks that they like to make sure stay upright for their own ticket sales. So I think yeah, that was pretty interesting. I actually didn't see that. But that's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's probably going to circulate a ton today because I think it got somebody not leaked it, but the video the video was just out, and then somebody else leaked how the internet is. Somebody was like, "Whoa, did he just say I don't care how you hit the quarterback?" Like, wait, what? Because it looks like just a celebration and a hug, and then you kind of have to re-listen to the audio, and he's like, "Man, I don't care how you hit the quarterback." It's like, whoa, okay, Roger had one too many beers, and he's out here.
I mean, he was sitting with Jay-Z.
True. What's funny too, though? Like Kevin Hart. So Kevin Hart had drank too much again. So I think people were like also like happy that, or like not happy, but upset that the Eagles didn't win because they wanted to see if Kevin Hart would make another mistake like he did before and like get on TV, curse, national TV, get thrown off the stage. He tried to hold the trophy with the Eagles that year at Minnesota. Like he tried to like walk on the stage. Like, dude, you can't walk on the stage. Like the security guard was like, man, get your little self back. Like, we know who you are. You little comedian. Like, no, you're not going up on stage to hold the trophy. Like he was wasted. But it's funny because he posted the video like taking 9 shots or something, and it's like, yeah, you're 5'1" or 5'2". You got little bitty kidneys. You can't be drinking that much. Like you can't drink like the big boy. Like, well, his boys is like 6'5", 6'4". You got little kidneys, man. You can't be drinking. You gotta, man, chill out. Take one drink and then chill, Kevin.
Also, when are you too old to be posting yourself taking 9 shots? Like that, like
Kevin Hart years old. Kevin Hart years old,
right?
Sure.
He didn't post it. He didn't post it though. So one of his boys was videoing it and put a counter up, like it was like a TikTok, like they put a counter every time he took a shot or took a drink. Yeah. And so then of course, like then they probably show him the video. He's like, all right, screw it, let's run it. Because then at the end it showed him getting pushed by the security guard and like trying to get on the stage, and and that's what he was saying. He's like, people, that wasn't me. That was the drinks, But yeah, one of his friends had a counter, and I think he had got up to like 9 drinks, and that's only a 3-hour span. That's a lot in 3 hours.
That's rough. We're not even talking about mixed drinks. I mean, you probably had a couple of mixed drinks. I mean, yeah, that's a long next day. Like I'm to that point in my life now where like when I drink, I think about the next day. Like, how am I going to feel? So
exactly.
I know. I didn't even drink for the Super Bowl. I was like, I don't need to. I mean, it's just me, my wife, and kids. I'm like, I don't need a drink. Like, I'm good. Like, I'm chilling. Like,
I was hungover just from the food that I ate. I can't imagine adding 9 shots to that mix.
Well, Tatum made the comment of keeping quarterbacks upright. One last one before we jump into the Daily 3. When we're talking about keeping quarterbacks upright, one quarterback is up and out. That's Tom Brady. Another quarterback, we don't know what he's doing because he's in the dark. That's Aaron Rodgers, and he's probably leaving Green Bay. You got Brock Purdy, who won't be back for we don't know what kind of elbow injury it is, if it's going to be a like serious type of strained tendon or something that keeps him out for 6 to 9 months. Nobody knows yet because, of course, they weren't in the Super Bowl, so nobody cares about the 49ers, but that's going to come out at some point because if the 49ers get aggressive trying to get a veteran quarterback to come play for them for a couple, whatever, like, hey, we just need you for the season, or hey, we just need you to Brock Purdy is back. Whether it's Trey Lance, because who knows what's going to happen with him if they don't make that trade, if they try to, make Jimmy Garoppolo stay and sign him for another year. But with all of that change in the NFC, Aaron Rodgers is probably going to the AFC because they're not, the Jets already, or the Packers already said, we're not trading you to the NFC. We'll see you to the Jets, we'll see you to the Raiders, but not the NFC. So the 49ers are out of that. Does that make Kirk Cousins a top 3 quarterback in the NFC? When you think about Jalen Hurts, and then who? I mean, if you look at the NFC, you got Jalen Hurts, because every other good quarterback is in the AFC when I thought about it. The Bills, Josh Allen. You got the Bengals, Joe Burrow. You got Patrick Mahomes. You got, what's his name? Trevor Lawrence. You got the other kid, Herbert. Like, all those guys are in the AFC. Does that put Kirk Cousins in the top 3 in the NFC now because just retirement and transition? I'll start with you, Tatum.
Yeah. I think he was in at least the top 5 last year, right?
He's top 4. He was top 4 this season.
Top 4 of the season. I see Gabe smiling because we talk about this quite often. Yes, I think you have to at least, and that's actually when you were talking earlier about the 4 guys, you think, they're the new wave of these generational quarterbacks. I was like, hey, I'll take 3 out of 4 being in the AFC. Let's go, right?
They are.
Because,
yep.
Kirk, there's a lot up there. He's here for another year. And I think, he wants to be here, which is always good. And you see the success that you can have. And like Sam said, filling in all the stuff around him. Yeah, I think he's top 3. Just for the sheer fact that he is he's a veteran, he knows what he's doing. It is a different take on it though, because if you see like the way the league is trending, I think quarterbacks that play like Kirk Cousins are slowly becoming a little bit less popular than quarterbacks who play like Mahomes and Hurts. And I mean, even Joe Burrow has a little bit of mobility. Obviously Josh Allen does. So I do think just as a matter of just a process of elimination that he's top 3 in the NFC for sure.
Gabe, I saw you laughing. What's your thought?
Yeah, Tatum and I talk about this a lot, and she gives me hell for it, and I respect her take.
No, I just love making. Gabe just makes me laugh with how he feels about it.
So, like right now, I'll probably go Hurts as 1.
Mm-hmm.
2, I would go Matt Stafford, and 3, I will probably put Kirk 3A, 3B with Jared Goff, just based off how Jared Goff played last year.
No Prescott. No Prescott in your top 4?
Nah, Dak is trash. I mean, I'm Shady McCoy. Yeah,
I'm about to say, is that Shady back there?
Yeah, I'm right. Dak is no. So Kirk, yeah, like I would say he definitely had in my opinion, his best year of his career as far as if you watched every single game and didn't look at stats. Kirk played phenomenal last year, but so did Jared Goff. So did Matt Stafford when he wasn't hurt. And then you got Jalen Hurts, who was in the Super Bowl. So I don't know. I think the only thing that's missing from Kirk's game is just kind of that improvisation, right? Like that, if Kirk had a little bit of improv, like you can put him as a top 5 or a top 8 quarterback in the NFL. That's literally the only thing he's missing. But he showed a few spurts last year where you can say, okay, maybe Kirk can do this. So I'm interested to see, can he continue that trend for next year? And then, I'll probably put him a little bit higher. But yeah, Kirk is one of 10 or 12 quarterbacks in the NFL that can win you games. And at this point, if you are a GM or owner, you just want a quarterback that can put you in positions to keep you competing in close games. And I think Kirk can do that for you.
And real quick one, Sam, what you got?
Yeah, the quarterbacks that I think you might have ranked above Kirk going into last year, and you might not have, like if you're Ron, I think you were always a Kirk guy, but a lot of people would have put Kyler above him, Prescott above him, and Stafford above him.
Yeah, that was when Shannon Sharp dunked on me this offseason, and he put Kyler Murray up there on top of my tweet, like he tweeted on top of my tweet, which appreciated Shay, because you got me up to like 2 million views. Because everybody else wanted to follow up. But then, like, as the season went on, I loved re-looking at the comments because then people start going back like, hey, Shannon, wait a minute. That Kyler Murray kid ain't looking better than Kirk. That Dak Prescott guy not looking better than Kirk. Like, you picked all these guys, that Russell Wilson guy not looking better than Kirk. So I mean, Kevin O'Connell, man, he's a QB whisperer. The best head coach for a quarterback is a former quarterback. I hate to say that. Frank Reich got a raw deal with
a
carousel. Right. He got a carousel of quarterbacks. But a lot of backup quarterbacks who become head coaches tend to do pretty well. And that's why Kevin O'Connell, I think he knows how to help Kirk out. I think Kirk's next step, he's going to have the grills. He's going to have the ice.
Mm-hmm.
I think he needs to take some CBD gummies with a little THC in it when Minnesota legalizes it. I got some 5 milligram joints upstairs. You take 4 of them. That gives you 20 in your system. Be nice and calm. But I think the improv, he needs to go on Wild 'N Out with Nick Cannon and just learn how to improv. Somebody throws something out there, make me laugh with it. Like he needs to let go and just have fun. Like Tatum said, the 7-on-7 type of flag football where the guy is running unevaded. How do you get rid of him? You spin out, you do something, creative. And I think that's where Kirk just needs to have fun, like backyard football. Like we all remember playing like backyard football or dodgeball. You just let your body go. You just have fun. And I think that Kurt's coming. It's coming though, because I think he was in a shell and now he's coming out of his shell. It reminds me of the Ninja Turtles. I hate to say it, but it reminds me of the Ninja Turtles after the green goo got on them and they came out of their shell and became these like superhuman, like laughing Donatello, Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Raphael. Like I feel like Kirk's coming. Like his Ninja Turtle days of having fun, it's coming. Like Kevin O'Connell has told him, like, dude, just have fun. I don't give a crap what happens. Let's go in here and have some fun. So I think that's next. But coming up next, we got the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes each. 4 of us are going to have a little fun with it. We're going to take 30, 40 seconds each, and then we're going to get out of here. But before we do that, I want you guys to remember, you can check out the Minnesota Football Party 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. Get your Vikings fix with Arif Hassan, Luke Inman, Luke Brown, and Sam Ekstrom on Locked On Sports. You can also, we also have a word from our sponsors.
Yeah, today's show brought to you by Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, plus instant reactions, game recaps, and Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, here we go. It's the time of the show I love. It's the Daily 3. That's 3 questions, 3 minutes for each question. Take it away, Sam.
And I'll buzz you when you get to 1 minute. I will not hesitate to buzz the crap out of you. So here is here's the first question. And Ron, I don't know what order you want to go in, but if you could give out one big free agent contract starting in March, what position group would you add to this Vikings team this offseason? You get one big contract. Which group are you going to add depth to?
I'll start it out. I'll let these two think about it. I'm going to go corner. I just think if you can get a cornerback out there that is a top level guy. I mean, there's a lot of guys, that possibly can either be traded for or move. I know Brian Flores, like Gabe brought up, he was a DB coach. Sam mentioned that as well. I think he knows some guys out there he probably wants. And I think that's going to be key. If it's not that, it's a dynamic, I'd say like a tweener safety nickel type of guy that can play the nickel, but then also play a little safety and help you out there. Because again, these offense, the teams they're playing, they're going to need that. So I would just go defensive back. I hate to say it. And in the draft as well, I think you need to load up and get aggressive. Gabe.
Yeah. Since you said cornerback, I'm going to go on the other side of the ball because receiver, I would spend some money on a game-changing player that can make some plays down the field, but also can stretch the field. Ron, you played receiver, but you were 6'4", jump ball receiver. Like if teams were double teaming you, that means someone else was open down the field. And if you can get somebody that can put respect on that player to open up more opportunities for JJ, I think this offense makes that next step. Both teams in the Super Bowl had 2 big-time targets. The Chiefs, you had Kelsey, and then you had why am I drawing a blank on his name? Juju Smith-Schuster. Both of those guys were making plays towards the end of the game. And then you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. The Vikings are missing that second big-time receiver. Yeah, we got Adam Thielen, KJ Osborne, but I think both of those guys are complementary guys on third down that you can target. But you need another big play threat down the field.
Tatum.
So,
yeah, Ron, I wrote down, because we got these questions a little bit ahead of time, I said a veteran man quarterback, because we all know Brian Flores loves his corners to be able to play man. We talked about the blitzing. So I do think you need that in there, because if you don't go with Patrick Peterson with some veteran presence, there's nothing but young guys back there. If that's how you go in the draft, you're going to need someone to help bring those guys up. I think there's a lot of promise and potential with a couple of the cornerbacks from last year's draft, like Caleb Evans and Andrew Booth Jr., but I do think you need somebody in there. And I think that's the biggest glaring weakness in this team. We talked about how bad the pass defense was last year, line 400 yards. I do think that you got to look right there.
Yeah. What's next, Sam?
Yeah, I would say also that cornerback, you could maybe get one very high in the draft. It's an extremely deep cornerback draft. Maybe you can get by getting a new corner there and then spend that money on like defensive line. But that's just me. Which 2022 Vikings rookie do you think has a chance to develop the most in 2023?
Oh, that's a tough one for me. I am going to go with Brian Asamoah. And I just think in this aggressive type of defense, if he's going to stick to a true 3-4, that's a guy that can come in and play the Mike or the Mo linebacker. Well, probably Mike more so than Mo. And roam the field a little bit, play a little two-man where he spies the quarterback, allowing Eric Kendricks to maybe get up in the A-gap a little more, allowing Jordan Hicks to become maybe a true outside backer at times. So I feel like there's got to be some ways to use a dynamic speed guy, especially if it's just getting after the quarterback. When you look at Hassan Reddick, I mean, he's only 233 pounds, and he created havoc coming off the end. And it's all about speed. So I love to see Brian Asamoah be utilized a little bit more in this defense. Tatum?
Yeah, you completely just, took my pick yet again. That's okay. I do think Brian Asamoah is an exciting grab because he is is playing the position that Brian Flores just came and had a ton of success in just one season with TJ Watt. Guys like that I think it was like 6 rushing touchdowns they allowed this year. There's some crazy stats that I was actually trying to pull that up right now, but I thought Gabe was going first, so I was going to pull that up. But I would also say Brian Asamoah. I do think Lewis Cine is an exciting thing as well to watch, because obviously we know that Brian Flores started out as a safeties coach and knows the position so well. And I think not knowing and not seeing too much from Lewis, obviously losing the job out to Cam Bynum and Harrison Smith, and knowing his future, I think that's also kind of a promising guy to keep your eye on.
Yeah, Gabe?
I'm going to go Caleb Evans. He's already a man corner. He's long. He can run. He can play press man. He can play off man. And he reminds me so much of a guy that Brian Flores signed in free agency in Miami, and Byron Jones. The cornerback they had there, he was like 6'1", stupid athletic, long arms, could run. And I think Caleb Evans is going to make that step from year 1 to year 2, just simply because he's had the experience. He's not afraid to put his head in the play, but he also is long and fast enough to be able to cover your top receiver. So I'm excited to see what he can do in 2023.
What you got next, Sam?
Yeah, the correct answer was Jalen Naylor. Sorry, nobody gets a point for that. Feel-good question to end this thing. Let's put a bow on the NFL season. What was your favorite moment from the 2022 NFL season, whether it was Vikings or otherwise? It can be around the league as well.
My favorite moment was watching the world come together all for Damar Hamlin. Like seeing something that brutal happen and seeing the world come together. It was good to see because everybody was able to put their differences aside. Now, of course, once it all played out, now we're back to conspiracy theorists and all the crazy people are back. But for a while, everybody was all praying for Damar. Everybody did not want to see this happen. Everybody was trying to figure out, like, how do you move forward? Seeing the Bengals and the Bills, both coaches just say, screw this game, we're done. Not putting, because back in the day, Gabe knows this. Somebody gets hurt, they can break their neck. All right, let's give them 5 minutes and then let's play. Seeing 2 coaches really say, you know what, man, like this dude died and we brought him back. So I think that was a cool moment to really see life being put over football. Even though there were some weird tweets out there, Skip Bayless and some of these other people, but it was great to see that take place. And another good one for me has nothing to do with, it was a football player, but it was basketball, was Shannon Sharp. Like Shannon Sharp at the Lakers game against T. Morant. Like that that still to me is the funniest thing ever. Like how everybody like became football versus basketball. Like, oh man, football players will wreck basketball players. Y'all don't want to fight us. Like it just became this lifelong like battle. So those are my two favorite moments from football season. Let's go, Gabe.
Yeah, DeMar Hamlin. That's the obvious one. Just from, I mean, literally dying on the field, and then him just. I mean, that story is still kind of fresh to me, just because of just all the emotions that ran through the entire world during that moment. Like the first thing I thought of was his mom. His mom was at the game. She drove with him to the game, and then for her to see her son like that, I'm just like, I can only imagine that. And just seeing how the overpouring of love and support for that young man during that moment, I think like Ron said, it brought literally the entire world together, at least for a moment. And that's kind of what we strive for in sports, just to get people's minds off of what they're going on in real life, what's going on in real life. And to have that moment was by far my favorite moment. And then two, the LeBron James, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the edit with,
blocking it.
People saw, of course, LeBron, all-time leading scorer, but somebody made that edit of Kareem blocking the shot. Like that was by far the most hilarious thing I've probably seen in a couple of years. So yeah, those two moments.
Tatum.
I would have to say it's not really a moment. It's just being able to watch Justin Jefferson play the game and have a front row seat. He's going to be the greatest, and I have no doubt about it. I have been on the MVP JJ for MVP train for a long time now, and I think it'll happen eventually. I think we got one step closer, Vikings fans, to making that happen, and I obviously just really excited to see what his future holds. Hopefully he stays in purple and gold, and just being able to witness history being made at all corners. You never know what's going to happen. And I think that's kind of exciting as a football fan, as someone who works in the organization, gets to watch it. Like I said, a front row seat. It's pretty awesome. And I think it's something that I definitely don't take for granted as it unfolds. You sit back and you kind of think about it. And then my lighthearted one was, I will never get over Kirk Chains. As much as it became this like taboo thing and kind of maybe a little annoying to a lot of people towards the end, which is totally fair. I still think just when it was happening, I just remember watching it on Instagram Live, but being on the plane and being like, so that's what goes on in the front, right? Like I was just sitting here being like, okay, this is a really weird Inception moment, but quite hilarious. And I think that's also to Kirk's credit, part of the letting himself go more, maybe. He just sang on stage the other day. If we could get Kirk to let loose on the field like he let loose with Kelly Clarkson, you never know what'll happen, right?
Yeah, and he could sing too. He could sing. Kelly Clarkson was surprised. Yeah. Sam, what's
sing talking? Let's not mail this home and give him a Grammy or something.
I mean, he did sing High School Musicals growing up, so
true.
Yeah,
he can't sing.
Sing talking. It's the key.
Yeah.
He was
Sam,
beautiful.
What's your moment before we get out of here, Sam?
Yeah, just the yo-yo of emotions of the Buffalo game. Oh, Justin's catch. Oh, they're gonna win. No, they're stopped. Oh, they got a fumble recovery. Oh, the Bills tied it. Like back and forth, up, and that was unbelievable. Now I've never seen a game like it.
Yeah, and I don't think we'll ever see another one like that, or the Colts. Like those two historic games, people are going to remember, hey, if I'm on the 1 yard line, let's go shotgun, and I'm going to just throw it deep. Like I just got to keep throwing it and then punt. Like, or just punt. Don't even try to like get out the end zone. Let's just punt. Let's punt this thing out. Like, just don't do it, because if we punt it, we probably win this game. And they probably would have. If they had punted the ball there, they probably win. Game's over. Like, because I still don't think the Vikings had a chance to come down and actually score a touchdown. Like, that was crazy. But I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank Gabe, Tatum, Sam. You guys were awesome. And remember, people, if you want endless Vikings talk with local experts, make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel, where you can find all of our videos and our shows and instant podcasts after every game. You'll have the Vikings press conferences delivered with all the biggest news. As soon as Brian Flores steps onto the scene, we will have that press conference for you. Like our videos and leave your comments in the section below. Thank you, and have a great day.